Good evening and welcome. The North Carolina Business Committee for Education and the North Carolina Virtual Public School are proud to host the North Carolina Career Connections Speaker Series. The speaker series includes presentations about career paths and jobs by those working in the field. And tonight we have some students and a guidance counselor coming to talk with all of you about what to expect senior year of high school. We feel that it is never too early to start thinking about your future, whether it is college or career paths, and we are now providing a platform for our students to gain insight and exposure to potential career paths and navigating that stressful senior year. And we are excited tonight, as I said, to have several students with us. We have Addison Powers, who is a business major at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Simon Michelle, who is also a business major at Washington and Lee University. Ethan Tran, who is a computer science major in the College of Engineering at North Carolina State University. And Austin Cook, who is a communications and public policy double major with a minor in Spanish, also at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And Mrs. Amy Parker is with us. She is a guidance counselor as well as a teacher with North Carolina Virtual Public School. Thank you all for being here with us this evening and being willing to offer your experiences and tips and advice. So, what to expect senior year? It's hard to believe, but it is time to start thinking about going back to school again. And we've got lots of great advice for you. And a thank you from Miss L in the chat there. Okay, Addison, we will start with you.
Thank you for the introduction. So applying to college can seem daunting, but with a steady plan in place, the process can be a lot less intimidating. Tonight, I'll walk you through the same steps I went through when applying for college. First, before you start anything, you'll want to get in the right mindset. I'm a firm believer in thinking positively, and at least for me, it makes it easier to achieve your goals. So I want all of you to have a positive outlook whenever you're applying to colleges. Thinking negatively will only slow you down and won't help you. Once you've given yourself a hefty dose of optimism, you can start on the plan I've laid out here. The first step in the plan is to have thought out who you can ask for a recommendation. This is a very personal choice, so don't feel rushed to choose just anybody. You'll want to choose teachers who know you and your work ethic and your personality. You'd want someone who would have no problem talking about all the great qualities you have. Be sure not to pick a teacher you may not care for you, and also try to avoid teachers who may not remember you. If possible, your best options are going to be teachers you've had fairly recently, who you know well and would have no problem saying nice things about you. The next step will be creating your Common App account. You'll want to head over to www.commanapp.org to start setting it up. Once there, you'll want to click on the Create an Account button. And since you all are all first-year students, you'll want to make sure to select the first-year student button soon after. From there, the website should give intuitive directions on how to start filling out all of your demographic information. That information includes your legal name, sex, birth date, phone, email address. There's tons of information to fill out. But if you start early, it'll go smoother. The ultimate goal would be to have all of your demographic information, everything but the writing section, filled out before the first day of school. The less you have to juggle, the better. After that, you'll want to write your personal statement. A personal statement, or personal essay as it's listed on the Common App, is a 650-word essay you'll be submitting to each of the colleges you apply to. This is the one essay that will stay the same on each of your applications. You'll have 7 prompts to choose from, and this is your chance to write about you. This is the essay that will best show who you are to colleges. The prompt I responded to asked about obstacles I had encountered and how it was fundamental to my later success. So I chose to talk about getting over my shyness by playing sports. Just to reiterate, there are 7 prompts to choose from, but you choose the one that best fits you. Choose a prompt that will allow you to talk about yourself in depth in a meaningful way. You'll also want to have this written as soon as possible, because the sooner it's written, the sooner you can have it proofread by your friends, teachers, parents, or any other resources. Once that's completed, you'll want to go through and add the colleges you're interested in applying to. So for example, I was interested in applying to UNC. So I went and clicked on the college search tab at the top of the Common App website, and I typed in the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And from there, I would click the plus sign button to add it to my list of colleges. Once you've added the college or colleges you're interested in applying to, you'll want to go through each of them and fill out any additional demographic information that they need. Beyond that, you'll want to go ahead and glance at all the essays that are listed under each of the schools and start thinking about how you want to answer those prompts. Brainstorming with your parents or friends is a great way to do this, so I don't recommend you writing these essays if you haven't thought about how you want to first respond to them. These colleges are looking for thought out responses to the questions, and they can tell who did and who did not spend the extra time thinking the questions through. Some of the colleges will have optional essays, and the word optional here leads you to believe that you don't have to do them, but that is beyond the truth if you truly want to get into these colleges. Think about it. If the college were trying to choose between two students who had the exact same test scores, writing ability, etc., and only one did the optional essays, then they would pick the one that did the optional essays. Doing the optional essays shows your dedication to getting in these schools, and that is a characteristic that you want to have. You should also aim to apply early action if possible. Early action means that your application will be due sooner than the regular application due date, but that also means you'll get your admission decision sooner as well. I applied early action to all 4 schools that I applied to, and I got my decisions in the winter rather than the spring. Another benefit of applying early is that there are 3 possible responses that you could get from the college instead of simply acceptance or denial. The third possibility is that you could be deferred, which means that you didn't quite get in on the first round with all the other early applicants, but you can be reconsidered when they release regular admission decisions. Applying early is worth it, as I was deferred from NC State in the first round, and then when spring decisions came out, I got into the school. Finally, you want to fill out the FAFSA application for financial aid. One of the other speakers, Simon, will briefly touch on this in his presentation, but I wanted to go ahead and mention it here as well. Filling this out is how the government determines your eligibility for federal student aid, like loans, grants, and work study opportunities. It may also determine your eligibility for state and school aid as well. There are also some other financial aid forms that schools may recommend, such as the CSS profile, but those should be listed on the application or on the school's website. For those of you all applying to in-state schools, you'll also want to fill out the Residency Determination Service, or simply RDS, online form. This will show that you get in-state tuition instead of having to pay out-of-state prices. I know that was a lot of information to process, but I hope you feel better about what to expect when you're applying to colleges this year. In summary, the one piece of advice that will serve you well during all of this is not to procrastinate. The sooner you get things done, the better. I hope you all enjoy your senior year, and I know you're going to rock those applications.
Thank you, Addison. And I wanted to mention, I forgot to do so, students, if you have questions, we will have a question and answer session at the end, but if you want to pop your question in the chat or unmute your mic, feel free to go ahead and ask that question so that you don't forget. And if there's a particular student with the school that they're going to or something that they say that you want to address a question to, please feel free to jump right in. Okay, so now, Simon, I will let you talk about scholarships, financial aid, and just what to expect in general.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. So this part of the presentation is all about scholarships, financial aid, and what to expect when you're in your senior year. So first section we're going to talk about here is scholarships. And there are a lot of different ways to get scholarships. I mean, most people think that scholarships are really only for sports or academic achievement or something like that, but they're for a lot more things than you might think they are. The first resource that you might want to use, I know a lot of people are members of Crosby Scholars. I didn't personally do it, but I know a lot of my friends have done it, and they've been able to get some money from that. And so that is a great resource to go to about scholarships if you want to start your search for it. So next after that, we have government-sponsored scholarship foundations. So this would be something like if your city or your county has some kind of foundation or something like that. Normally, they have these foundations and they have multiple different scholarships under one umbrella of the foundation. So for example, I applied, and I know my friends here as well also applied to the Winston-Salem Foundation scholarships, and were able to get some stuff from that. So that was a great resource as well. Also, you have, excuse me, you have nonprofit organizations and businesses that will both also give out scholarships based on if you've worked for them, and if you need the money or going to a certain university that they have a partnership with or something like that. So, I mean, if you have like a part-time job or a volunteer organization, it might be a good idea to ask the person running the show if they have connections or some sort of scholarship opportunity for you in that field. So also, there are some scholarships that are specific to certain colleges and universities, such as the Moorhead at UNC Chapel Hill. That's a big one. And these are usually huge ones. They have a lot of money involved in them. Like some of them are full ride or very close to them. And it's very important that you look at the schools that you're applying to and see if they have these kinds of scholarships, because you might be eligible for them and it couldn't hurt to apply to some of them. So also, guidance counselors, great resource for scholarships. You can ask them about it. I'm sure they would be happy to talk to you if you're interested. You can set up a session or a meeting with them and you can discuss what kind of scholarships you might be eligible for. And if nothing else, just try Google searching the scholarships for your area in North Carolina, scholarships for high school students in, any town, North Carolina, and that's definitely a good idea to do. And so some scholarships, they might not have a lot of money in them, but they can still be important because some of them can be prestigious or they can have other things attached to them. So you might not think that you might be getting a lot out of applying to some, but they might serve you well in the future. So that's that part. Okay, so now onto the section about financial aid here. Now this can be a very confusing process, and it's very beneficial to have a parent or guardian or somebody you trust help you out with this section, because it's very confusing and a lot of the stuff can get very convoluted. So as Addison touched on in his portion, FAFSA, CSS, both important to fill out. Tax returns, I'm talking about your parent or guardian, their tax returns need to be sent into the university so you can see what sort of aid you're going to be eligible for. And some colleges, such as my university, I go to Washington and Lee University. It's a school in Virginia, and I got a grant from the university that cut my tuition pretty much in half. And this grant was very important for me because it was based on my financial situation and also my academic performance. So this was a big thing there. And personal tax returns, sometimes you can lump those in with your parents, but if you have like a part-time job or something like that, you might want to send in like your W-2 forms or, the money that you've made from your part-time job or something like that. And touching on grants again, they can come in a lot of different forms, including, your scholarships, but sometimes you don't even have to apply for these grants, and they'll be given to you based on your need or your academic performance or something like that. So if at all possible, you want to try and stay away from federal loans, because that is going to mean you're going to have debt after coming out of college, and nobody really wants that. So, I mean, if you need them, then by all means take them. But if you can avoid them, you should try your best to. And one thing to remember about financial aid is that colleges have a lot of money to give. They have big endowments. A lot of these big universities, they have a lot of money that they can give, but you just need to know how to access it. Okay, so this is the final section here. What to expect in your senior year. So there's a lot of different things that go on in senior year. You're going to get very hectic and very, busy a lot. So you got your sports, your clubs. A lot of the time when you're a senior, you can get promoted into some sort of leadership role in a club or a sport or something like that. For example, I was made captain of the swim team at Reagan High School in my senior year. I also became president of the Latin club in my senior year as well. So, and then other extracurriculars, something like band or something like that, that might take up a lot of time because, you know, you're a senior and they're going to expect more out of you. So another thing, the National Honor Society, that sometimes can be, it can sneak up out of nowhere and get you, because I had to give a speech at the National Honor Society induction, and I'd thought that I was finished with National Honor Society at the time, and then they wrote me back into it. And so I was like, you know, this was something that came up out of the blue. So, you know, expect stuff like that to perhaps happen. I put this one in here, library books. I mean, it might sound pretty funny, but, you know, if you have overdue library books, that can come back to bite you. And that's, you know, not something that anybody wants. So make sure all your library books are turned in. And this next one's pretty obvious. Exams, AP or otherwise, you've got to make sure that you prioritize so that you don't have to do a lot of stuff during your exam week. Because sometimes when you're a senior, you know, you think, oh, you know, the exams are not really that important or something like that. But, you know, if you're trying to get college credit for some of these AP courses or something like that, then you got to make sure that you're still on it and you study for those exams because they can be important. So then we get into essays, and like Addison mentioned with the Common App, there are some essays that you have to do there. There are some essays that you have to write for scholarships and some for specific colleges. I mean, all the colleges I applied to made me write specific essays based on prompts they gave me. So these can sometimes be time consuming. And like Addison said, it's smart to sit down with somebody else that you trust, maybe like a friend or a parent or somebody else, and go through these. But it's very time consuming. And if you don't prioritize doing the essays, then they can get lost and you're not going to put as much time into them as you might have wanted to. So the last thing I'm going to say about this, don't get too stressed out during your senior year. I know it's easy to, and it's easy to become overwhelmed, but you just need to remember that everything is going to be fine. It's all going to work out, and finding a balance between working and doing fun stuff is very, very important, and it can help you stay focused and stay grounded during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Great advice there so far from both Addison and Simon. And now we are going to move to Ethan. So you have done all of that hard work of the applications. You are into the college that you wanted to go to. What happens now?
So I divided this part into two sections. The first part being before the summer ends. So if you applied early action or early decision, you probably got a response from your college probably around end of December, beginning of January. If you applied regular decision, you probably got a response maybe around April or May. So at this point, you can choose to accept your college of choice. And what then? Well, you're not exactly done with senior year yet. So you want to make sure you finish it out strong. It's not exactly time to slack off just yet. You want to make sure you finish out your AP exams or any other exams, make sure you graduate. And those AP exams can still get you college credit. At that point, you also, after you accept your or finally enroll in the college that you so desire, this goes back to what Simon said before with their college specific grants. At that point, the option to apply to your college specific grants probably comes open to you, and you want to go search for that. And there will probably be a website you can go to, and there will be a bunch of essays you may or may not have to fill out. Some colleges will actually give you scholarships automatically, and some colleges won't. So that's where you'll have to do your research. At At that point, there's probably so you're done with senior year and it's the summer. So most colleges will have some sort of checklist you'll be able to find online. I know NC State has one, I know Chapel Hill has one, and I assume a lot of other schools do too. On that checklist, you'll have everything pretty much you'll need to know before college starts. They'll tell you confirm your enrollment. You'll want to apply for housing because living somewhere is probably important. Apply for a meal plan. And insurance is a big thing. You want to make sure you have some sort of insurance, either college provided or your parents under your parents' plan. You want to set up your student account, pay your enrollment deposit and or bills, and register for your first semester classes. Maybe touch base with your counselor on campus. Everything you need to know is pretty much on that checklist. And also don't forget, even though you've finished taking your exams, to make sure you get those AP or IB scores submitted. At that point, you can probably slack off just a little. Enjoy your summer while this is kind of an important time. You just finished with high school and you're pretty much going into college and starting your adult life. So enjoy this little brief rest while you have it. So once summer ends, you're gonna move into college or go to college if it's close to home. So probably a few days before classes start, you probably want to figure out your way around campus because it'd be a little troublesome to wake up one day, realize you have class, and realize you don't know how to get there. So probably plan ahead of time to figure out how to get to class. Make sure you have a planner of everything you need to do. That's a big one. So write down when your classes are, when projects are due, when homework assignments are due, pretty much everything. And I find that checking the syllabi and syllabuses for each of your classes is very important. It's probably one of the most useful things to do. I personally take maybe the first 2 days of the beginning of each semester, pull up each professor's syllabi, and input every single date on there into my Google Calendar. It really makes so even though halfway through the semester, I'll get a notification from Google Calendar. I don't have to worry about like making sure if I forgot something or anything. During so college is kind of their scheduling in college is kind of different compared to high school. In high school, you go to the same classes every day, pretty much for the whole year. In college, I think generally most colleges have a weekly schedule, so you may go to class 2 times or 3 times a week, oftentimes. So also, a lot of those classes only take up maybe 3 hours of the whole week. So you actually have a lot of free time on your hands, but that free time should be used in a efficient manner. You want to make sure you study and take the time to do your homework. So it's up to you. It's your responsibility to make sure that you set out times and dates that you're not in class to make sure you get your work done. I basically draw boxes on a calendar saying this is what I want to get done during this time frame. It's really important because in high school you have teachers nagging at you every day. In college, no one's going to be there to tell you to do that. So it's up to you to make sure you get stuff done. And finally, college is a place to study, but it's also a place to have some fun and meet new people. So a lot of schools at the beginning of your first year will have some event for freshmen to have you meet people. I know at NC State we have a welcome week. I assume a lot of other schools do too. And that's a good place to just have some fun activities, maybe throughout the day when you have some free time to meet new people. Joining clubs is another big thing. A lot of clubs will probably have some display at the welcome week, trying to recruit new people. It's a good way to do a fun activity that may be educational or not, and make connections and just have a little some fun. Because if you don't have some fun or some outlet, you're gonna get burned out really quick. So make sure you use your time efficiently, but also have fun at the same time.
Thank you, Ethan. Great advice. And now we will hear from Austin.
Hi guys, I'm Austin. I go to Chapel Hill as well. Today I'm just going to talk to you about things I didn't expect about college with some tips and tricks thrown in there, here and there. Perfect. Okay, so I'll start with the social slide. I've split them up into social, academic, and miscellaneous, but I'm a huge social person, so that's kind of important to me. Okay, so as Ethan said, your free time is going to get so, like, you're going to not even know what to do with yourself. But that's why the planner is so crazy important. And you also, going kind of to the second point, you really need to figure out how you want to balance your life. Like, there are always going to be 24 hours in the day, but how you divide it and where is going to be crucial. Yes, could you go back one more? Thank you, perfect. Okay, yes, so how you divide, you're okay. How you divide your time is going to be crucial. So I like to set aside 3 hours at some point during the day and just write exactly what I'm going to work on. Kind of what Ethan was saying about a Google Calendar, that would be great. And people are obviously going to ask you, hey, you can get dinner around 7. And that's when you have to decide, well, am I going to, drop this whole study for my math exam tomorrow, or am I going to go get dinner? And that's when it could go either way. But that's for you to decide, and don't let anybody else influence that decision. Speaking of the 24 hours in the day kind of thing, your sleeping schedule is going to get rocked. Like, it is not going to be at all the same of what you expected. I used to go to sleep religiously by 11, and then that way shifted back. But it's also how your classes, you position them in the day, and that's decided during registration. So just know yourself a little bit, but then also plan to, adjust as your schedule gets a little bit crazier throughout the semester. Let's see. Everybody says this, but not everybody like totally internalizes it. Your first friend group, do not go with this whole, oh yeah, this is my best friend, we're roommates, she's gonna be my maid of honor. No, not very likely. Your best friend, I don't care who it is, but the roommate that you have, what I did was take my roommate and said, hey, let's go to lunch every day of the first week around campus. And that's how you, one, get to know them, and two, go outside of your room, because it's really scary up by yourself. Your roommate's the person to explore that with. It's a good thing you probably kind of know them. You'll go to the cafeteria, talk to people. Don't just get your food and sit down. It's an open space for a reason. Just be like, hey, I recognize you from what, Winston-Salem? That's so cool. I went to Reynolds. Oh, I went to Reagan. Great. That's one more friend that you have. On that same train of thought, you're not going to see as much of the high school people that you expected to see in college. Like, you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, like, all of my friends are going to Chapel Hill, and I don't really, like them as much as I used to. Don't worry about it. You can see the people that you want to see, and it's not, you're in charge of yourself in college. You can always use the excuse, oh, I have an exam, but gone are the days of saying, oh, my mom won't let me. So go ahead and think of new excuses now. Another just like quick little tip for moving in, you do not need a printer. Every building has one, and at least for Chapel Hill, you're required to pay like a $40 down payment to use the printers there. So it's kind of ridiculous to just bring a whole nother one. That's probably going to cost you more anyway. You also don't need an ironing board or 12 pairs of shoes. Bring 5. I don't know, like slippers, shower shoes, of course. Going out to like around the town kind of shoes, walking around, gym shoes, you know the deal, but you don't have to have 17 of everything. It's usually so you don't have space for it. However, it's important to note, you really do need command hooks, tape, a vacuum, hangers, Clorox, and scissors. Scissors you don't think you need, but surprisingly, they come in very handy. Okay, that's good for that slide. Okay, on the academic side, This is me speaking from the Chapel Hill perspective, which I'm sure is very different. I mean, I'm sure it changes school to school, but this is what I've noticed. Your advisor is not going to be very easy to get in contact with. You're going to have to go onto your portal, find who they are, if their name is even listed, and reach out to them and say, hey, can we schedule a time this week to chat? I really don't know what I want my major to be, and I would really appreciate some advice right now. Great, that's what they're there for, but they're just really hard to find. You also have just a list of counselors and advisors on your school's website, so it doesn't really matter if you don't use yours. Sometimes they're booked 2 weeks out, and you just have to have that minute, you know, tell me what class to take. They're there for that. So use them. But just understand that they're not going to be at your beck and call all the time. I would also suggest scheduling a meeting with them at least twice a semester. Once at the beginning, just to check in and say, hey, do I need to drop a class, add a class? What are you thinking? Does this sound right for me? And then mid-semester and just check in again, and then probably talk about what you're thinking for the break upcoming. If you want to have a professional or some sort of vocational opportunity in there, they can really, really help with that. Let's see. On that note, professional level, like summer jobs and internships, those applications are going to come out way sooner than you start thinking about them. So you got to get on that as soon as possible. You're going to have to write a whole new resume. Your high school one is really not going to be the same as your college one. You're also going to learn how to write a cover letter. Ideally, your advisor is going to help you with that, but then again, like, you have to reach out to that because there's not often like a template that you can get like that. But if you ask for it, it's there. Let's see. Yes, ask for a cover letter. Oh yeah, and get on LinkedIn. Start that now. That's basically, if you're not totally familiar, it's like a professional kind of almost like Facebook, but for jobs. And it's really important to update what you're doing. You know, like what kind of titles you've gained, what you're, you know, how you are as a person. That's what jobs are really going to look at. Some jobs say like attach your LinkedIn URL. I'm like, oh my word, like I better make one. So start on that now. It really helps, and make connections. And also, here's something I've kind of figured out. You can connect, like connect is basically like friend somebody. Connect with people that you're really not all that close with, because everybody just wants more connections. It's just a number, and the more you have, the better it'll look, and it's great for networking anyway. Let's see, changing majors is okay. Please do not be afraid to completely change your career path. I know some people who go in and they're like, I want to go to med school. That's exactly what I'm doing. And that's great. That's awesome, but that's not me. I went in there and I was like, oh, I want to be political science. And then I was like, wait a minute, what if I want to be English? Wait a minute, history. Hold on, communications, PR. So I've been everywhere, believe me, and I still don't even know what I want to do. But you're gonna have your advisor to talk about that with, and that's okay. Just understand that everybody's going through it. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it's okay, and you can handle it. On the same kind of thought that Ethan was saying about the syllabus, read it plenty of times over. And that's really, I know in high school, I think there used to be a little, hey, this is this week's homework. Well, imagine that, but times 9. They're going to give you a this week's homework for the entire semester at the get-go. So write it down and get super on it. Remember those dates, especially the important ones. Circle them, highlight them, do what you need to do. But also, there are going to be some books on the syllabus that you're going to be required to buy. I'll go ahead and save you $500. Don't buy them. 1, don't buy them, rent them. And 2, don't buy them 2 weeks out in advance, because you might get in the class and they're like, oh, well, the syllabus is actually 4 years old and I don't really use that book anymore. Well, now what do you have? A $500 book that you're never going to use. So that's ridiculous. And I definitely didn't know that for my entire first year. So anyway, but that's fine. Certainly rent used. Yes. Also, participation in class, there's most likely going to be a grade for that every time, especially if there's small class sizes. It might be like 20%, but expect that. As much as I talk, like just as quickly and as all the time I talk, I do not like participating in class. I am terrified of raising my hand. I'm sure at least Addison, you can testify. Like I've never once like raised my hand in class. But that's got to change. That has got to change. Like, and in college, it doesn't matter if your input is completely like, off your rocker. They want to hear it, and somebody's going to respond to that. It doesn't matter if it's like, I'm just wanting to play the devil's advocate. Nobody wants to play the devil's advocate, and nobody wants to hear somebody else play the devil's advocate. But if that's what you need to do, get it done. It's gonna be fantastic for your grade later. Trust me. And then always go to office hours. It's kind of scary, but bring a friend. And then stay after for questions. People are always going to be like, hey, I just have a quick little question. Do you mind if I stay after for a minute or two? And like catch on to that and be like, oh my gosh, what do they have to say? What are they wondering? Stay after. They don't mind. Everybody's included. It's all, I mean, it's an open place. So, I mean, take note of what everyone asks, because chances are you have the same question. So there's that. Okay. Yes, professors are most certainly more chill than expected. I think I remember a lot in high school, like, in college, your classes aren't going to be this relaxed. You can't turn in papers 2 weeks late or whatever. Please don't try it, but just understand that your professors are not out to get you. They're just like teachers, but a little bit on steroids. And they're either really passionate about what they're teaching or really hardcore about what they're teaching. And it goes either or, but all of them are fantastic and they have a lot to teach you. But they're not going to wring your neck if you say, hey, I had a little bit of a car crash last night. I'm a bit too stressed to work on this English final right now. Do you mind if I submit it a day late? They're like, I totally understand. They're very, very understanding people. I totally understand. Just get it to me whenever you can. Just make sure you do your peer review before then. Fantastic, you're done. But yes, peer stuff is also, on that note, very important. Like, you are going to have a ton, maybe not group work, but bouncing off of each other's ideas and seeing, oh, hey, do you mind editing my paper? Say yes every single time. If not just to see what they're writing about and see what kind of ideas they have, then to also just like improve your editing skills. That's huge. That's super important. Let's see. Ask for accommodations if you need them. I cannot stress this enough. I had accommodations all through high school for like ADHD, and I just was able to transfer that over into college, which was a lifesaver. So if you can get 50% extra time, if you can get separate setting, get on it, because everyone's very understanding about that, especially professors. They'll be like, hey, do you need extra time on this essay? And I'm like, well, that's not what really my accommodations are for, but listen, like, that's great. That's awesome. And if you need that, please don't be afraid to ask for it. And ask me if you need help with that, because it's kind of a process, but it's totally worth it. Let's see. High school versus college studying crowd. Yes, this is huge. So in high school, as Ethan was mentioning, you're going to be in class every day, and it's going to be like an hour a day. And then you're kind of expected to study for an hour at home. Well, that's all fun and games. But picture being in college, you're in class for 3 hours a week. So you're kind of expected to study like multiple hours a day to make up for the time that you're not in class. You're teaching yourself a lot of material. So you got to make sure, like, on top of homework, you're teaching yourself and then you're writing about it. So it's a lot that you kind of have to self-guide, and you got to be prepared for that. Let's see. Get involved. Yep, get involved. Clubs and intramurals. I can't really say a ton about this because the remote kind of thing really threw, I think, everybody off. But you should have a week of welcome when you get there. Go, please go, and spot out all the clubs. Oh, that looks interesting. Oh, Carolina puppy raising. I'm all over that. Oh my goodness. Carolina STEM girls. I'm a Carolina STEM girl. Great, go. That's awesome. But try not to go with quantity over quality. What you want to find eventually is where you really fit. And you don't want the number, and you don't want to boost your new little college resume and say, oh yeah, I'm in 17 clubs right now. Nobody's going to believe that. You can't put your all into 17 clubs. Nobody can. I can't do it. You can't do it. So just find what you're really passionate about and pursue it hardcore. That's going to be the best thing you can do for yourself. Little tip and trick. Download Uber, because you don't need your car. Please don't bring your car. I mean, unless you have some sort of long distance affair you need to get to, that's fine. All fun and games. But if you think, oh, I'm going to have a few doctor's appointments while I'm at college. No. You can Uber there. It's okay. Also, carry a charger and a snack everywhere you go. A water bottle, of course. And your backpack's going to be with you all the time. So that's just kind of expected. That's the norm. Also, your mom is going to want to hear from you. She's going to say, Austin, I'm wondering how your first class went. Call her on the phone. My mom and I call this like a proof of life call, just so she can see that I'm still like living and then doing well. That's also happy to hear. But try to call her at least, like once a week. That's what I try to do, and it's worked pretty well for her. She's like, thanks, Austin, for the call. I always love to hear from you. But they miss you. And my mom's thing is like, her phone ringer is always on for whenever a child is out of the house. So she'll pick up within the first ring, I promise you. And it's also just really sweet to catch up with the family. Let's see, last little bit. Above all else, be grateful. Not everybody gets to go to college. So soak every single little bit up, and, you know, don't remember to thank everybody you meet and make connections and just be in the moment above everything. So that's about all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Austin. More really great advice. And so at this point, students, parents, if you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute your mic. And presenters, you might want to look in the chat at some feedback that you have been getting on your comments. And if not, I have questions. Okay, so we have Ms. Parker here as well, and I just wanted to give her an opportunity of anything that she wanted to throw out from the guidance counselor's perspective as advice.
Hey, thank you. I wanted to make sure I just put it in the chat to everyone knew about this resource, goingmerry.com. I really like that the students talked about Common App, and Going Merry is something like Common App for scholarships. You can create a profile and it'll send you scholarships that you match with. And so it's a great way to do that. So, and it'll send you reminders and things like that. So it's also a really easy way for people to upload recommendations for you and different things, and you can upload transcripts and things. So I know that's something that we use in my school district, and it's been great for students. So that's an excellent resource. Always look for free resources. Don't pay for scholarship resources. That's what your school counselors are there to help you with. And I just want to make sure that you know that. And they did a great job talking about financial aid. You will need a parent to sign off on that. And you will both need an FSA ID to be your electronic signature. So a lot of times I've seen students who complete most of the FAFSA and then it gets delayed because they don't do the electronic signature. So make sure that both you and a parent do that signature. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or you got some great presenters here who can give some advice as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Parker. And we do have a question in the chat from Naja about when should we apply for scholarships?
So yeah, since I talked about scholarships, I'll go ahead and say something about this. So I think that that's something that you can probably do before senior year starts, sometime in the summer, or you can do it maybe the first few months of school. You don't really want to put off applying for scholarships until, you know, like after you've applied to your schools or whatnot. I think that this is something that you probably should do before you, I mean, it's really up to you, but really before you start hearing back from your colleges and stuff like that. It's definitely a good idea to see what you can get from scholarships before you start getting your acceptance letters and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
That's great advice. I actually recommend that students start looking for scholarships when they start high school. So you can apply for scholarships all 4 years. Sometimes the ones for 9th, 10th, 11th grade are going to be more like essay based or something like that. General scholarships that could be applied at any school, but make really certain that you're looking at all the schools that you're applying to, their scholarship pages, and that you're applying any additional applications. Most scholarships are based on your application for admission, but occasionally there are separate applications. I know in his presentation, he mentioned the big scholarships like the Moorhead Cane and things like that. But, you know, there are sometimes other scholarships that you may be able to apply through the financial aid office. And don't forget that you can apply for scholarships once you're a college student. So get to know the people in the financial aid and scholarship office. I had lots of students who've come back and told me they got scholarships after they were already enrolled in college.
Yeah, that's great advice. And Austin put that in the chat as well. So, you know, keep checking in, as Ms. Parker said, each year that you're in school to see, you know, maybe a brand new scholarship or something that you're eligible for that maybe you weren't prior to that point. Great advice. Other questions from students or parents? A question that I have for the presenters is you all talked about making sure that you enjoy the process, whether you're in your senior year or whether you are in that in between time in the summer or once you're in college. But I just want to hear some tips about handling the stress of it all, because I know as a parent, when I had a senior, it was really stressful for me. But how did you handle and juggle everything and still have fun? Anyone who wants to jump in.
I can jump in first on this one. So, really, I feel like having multiple different outlets and ways that you can relieve stress is a great idea to have. Big thing, you definitely want to hang out with your friends a lot during that time as well, because after you go to college, you might not get to see them as much as you might want to, and also, they're also, well, maybe for you guys it's a little different, but at least for me, most of my friends were also seniors, and so they could really help me through the process. And kind of, I guess, I don't know if trading war stories is the right way to put it, but I think that might, you guys get my point with that. But I think that, hanging out with your friends, it's a great way to relieve stress. If you're in any sports or anything like that, I mean, that was also a good way, a good outlet for me for my academics as well. I was on the swim team for all 4 years of my high school, and really, I think swimming helped me not only with my time management, but also it was a stress reliever for a lot of the time as well. So, sports, your friends. I mean, I like watching TV and playing video games and stuff like that. That's also a good stress reliever if you guys like doing that. So, I mean, that's uh, that's all I got. Somebody else want to jump in?
I'll add on to that. For me, kind of bouncing off what Addison said at the very beginning, it's so important to surround yourself, not only be positive yourself, but surround yourself with positive energy. If you have people coming to you like, oh, I just don't even want to apply to college anymore. It's such a stressful, stop it. Like, whoa, please be grateful. Please be grateful. And secondly, you really, to keep yourself motivated through this crazy long dreadful process, you need to have a good support system. The other thing is, for me, I know there's not a lot of people who are like this, or I'm guessing, but I really needed to keep myself busy, because sometimes to keep my mind off of what was going on, I had to stay on top of what was going on. So, and then, but give yourself obviously like a day, a week, maybe, to breathe. Just breathe through it. Also, one more thing. I kept a weekly calendar of goals I wanted to accomplish, whether that's scholarships, submitting an essay, or like getting a teacher recommendation every week, and you just check them off. And it really helps to not just be overwhelmed by the burden of it all, but to have a serious list of what you want to do. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. There's something nice about crossing things off your list.
Also, I have to remind you that your guidance counselors are there to help and support you for more than just the actual doing things on the application. So if you need to talk to someone about your stress or your anxiety, or you just need help and support, then your school counselors and certainly your parents are great resources for that.
Yes, thank you. I think sometimes students do forget that wonderful resource they've got right there in the school. Anybody else want to add to that before I move to my next question?
Sure,
Oh,
I'll bounce off of that. Yeah, so like Austin was saying, you definitely want to make a list and make sure to check it off. For me, to hold myself accountable, I always set one night a week where I was, even if I had work to do, I was going to make sure to spend time with my friends. And a lot of the time I'd leave there rejuvenated, having refilled my motivation to really get things done. But also that balance between work and play, you definitely should focus on your school and definitely focus on, applications and things of that sort, but at least have one day a week to really hammer that down. I see Elena has a question about what factors were most important to your decision when you were choosing between the schools you were accepted to. That's a great question. for me personally, I definitely wanted to stay in state just because I'm a first generation college student. Neither of my parents attended a 4-year college, and I wanted to choose something that was affordable. And North Carolina just has so many great schools around. I mean, NC State, Chapel Hill, Duke, Wake Forest. I mean, public and private, we have some of the best schools in the nation. Um, the reason I chose Carolina above all the others that I got into was just the atmosphere that they had. You definitely want to tour the campuses if you can before you make your decision, and even before you even add them to your list of options. I toured Chapel Hill with a friend of mine and I loved it. The campus was beautiful, but they also had a strong motivation towards excellence, and their program was nationally renowned. They have rankings online that you can view. So I was interested in business. I wanted to see, where nationally each of these schools ranked. And Chapel Hill ranked number 7 in their undergrad business program. It was the best out of the 4. So that was mainly how I came to my decision.
Yeah, thank you, Addison, for picking that up in the chat. In fact, Elena, that was a question I was going to ask them. So did you get, sorry, Simon and Ethan, go ahead.
Ethan, you got this.
All right. So for me, there are many factors, but the first factor I mainly considered was cost. Because college is an expensive affair. I actually got accepted into a college all the way up in New York, a private one. I even got a pretty hefty scholarship to go to it. But even with the scholarship, North Carolina public schools are still cheaper. So we're definitely lucky to have such a large system, public school system that with pretty good pricing. For me, I was actually quite torn between Chapel Hill and NC State. It was kind of a big internal struggle for me because they're both great schools that were about the same price. And I had bunches of friends going to both schools. And as a aspiring computer science major, both schools had great programs for it too. So it was a pretty tough choice. But I felt like I could have been happy going to either school actually. So it was pretty much a toss up. And I toured both schools. I got for a feel of it. I felt like both schools had great feels. They were completely different feels, but the atmosphere at both schools were, I just enjoyed both schools' atmosphere. I think one of the factors that played into my decision was at Chapel Hill, even though they had a computer science program, they didn't have an engineering program, but at NC State, they did have that. So if I ever decided I didn't want to do computer science anymore, it would be simple for me just to switch off to something like aerospace engineering, which wasn't an option for me at Chapel Hill. But ultimately, there a lot of cost was probably the first factor, but after that, it's pretty much visit the college and talk to the people there, see think of how you would fit in there pretty much, and yeah.
I'll go off of what Ethan said there. That's definitely great advice. Cost is a major factor for a lot of people. I know it was a huge factor for me when I made my decision as well. When I made my decision to go to Washington Lee, or WNL as me and many of my fellow students there like to call it, it was a major thing because of cost. And the reason why is because I didn't really get any money anywhere else I was going to go or where I applied to. And I got a huge grant from WNL that cut my tuition in half pretty much. And that was a huge factor in my decision. There are also a few little things as well. going off what Ethan said, I mean, you just got to see how you're going to fit in that community, and you got to think, where do I think I'm going to thrive the most, and where do I think I can get the best college experience for me? And for me, I like the smaller environment. It feels a lot more like a community, and I can get to know the professors and a lot of people on campus, like students in my grade, or even like who are older than me. I mean, I can get to know all of them because it's such a small place. It's about like 2,400 people. So, I mean, I can get to know a lot of people just through, walking around on campus or going and eating lunch in the cafeteria or something like that. So that was another thing. Another thing for me is I really like driving, and WNL let me have my car. So that was a huge factor for me as well. And I mean, it was fun giving everybody rides because not a lot of people brought their cars to campus. So, I mean, that was a lot of fun for me. So it's just really, I know Addison put this in the chat here, just see what is right for you. Think hard and long about making this decision, because it's not something you have to rush into. So, I mean, just sit down, think about it, and choose whatever you think is going to be right for you.
And I don't want to make this drag too long, but for me, very similar, the whole environment thing. The Chapel Hill was a very different school than what I was planning on going to Wake for all of my life. And then I got the acceptance that I was like, wait, never mind, false alarm. But that, and then I got accepted into an honors college. And their whole thing was, hey, small class sizes, we give you help on everything. You don't have to beg for stuff. It's all right in front of you, and the experiences that you get here are pretty much unlike ones you'll find at a big public university. I was like, okay, that's really interesting. Now for me, small class sizes aren't really a big deal, just because one, I have the accommodations, and two, the professor's really going to either lecture nonstop or, do group activity. It's not going to matter too much. And plus, I mean, I've found, at least in Chapel Hill, granted, I'm not a STEM kid, classes are decently small already. Anyway, but what drew me to Chapel Hill, instead of going to some like place where all the resources were in front of me, was I think I really liked the fact that, yes, it was in state, and it had this like an 80%, come here if you're from North Carolina. Like it's huge on North Carolinians. And I really, like, for me, I really like North Carolina. I want to stay here. And so I knew I would get crazy networking experiences if I went there. And also I don't know, I had a lot of friends go different places, but North Carolina was pretty much where everybody's at. What was I saying? Financial aid is obviously huge. But what you really want to decide is, how does the school make you feel? Go on your tours, and do not say, oh, let me go to that school just because my boyfriend is going to that school. Please don't make that decision, please. Like, do make your own decisions. That's the biggest thing in the world. And don't worry about following your parents' alma mater, and don't worry about following your siblings' alma mater. Choose what's best for you, because it's going to be different. And I guess last thing is, the socialness in me really wanted a big school, just because the more people I can meet, the better off I am. And that's just how I work. And you got to kind of know yourself in order to find your place.
It's really interesting. Most of these sessions that I do are with professionals, adults who are already working, and so many of the things you all have touched on about balance in life and knowing yourself and finding what works for you and brings you joy, they say. So you are all wise beyond your years. And I so appreciate the time that you have given. I told you all an hour, and I want to respect your time. If there are any last questions, though, from students or parents, please feel free to ask those. I don't want to leave anybody wondering and saying they wish they'd asked something. And Ms. Parker, thank you so much for coming and reminding students of the wonderful resource they have in their high schools with the guidance counselors, whether it's scholarship or college information or just handling the stress of it all. All right, well, I will keep the room open if there are any last minute questions, but otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you to our knowledgeable presenters, and thank you for our guest. And you're getting lots of thank yous in the chat. Thank you all so much. I think that went really well, and I was glad that we had some students pop in. And of course, it will be the archive will be there for students and parents to access on the NCVPS and the NCBCE websites. So I will send you all a link of that, and very much appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you so much for the invite. It's so sweet of you to even think of me and us. Thank you.
Oh gosh, it's great. I appreciate y'all's time and the slides, and you really thought about what you wanted to say, and it was really helpful.
Y'all did a great
Absolutely.
job.
Thank you. I wish I had this resource. I think it's very smart to have this, ability to have real students have their unfiltered opinions and advice rather than just, a parent saying, oh, well, you should do this. But to hear it from students who are not that much older than them, I think it's going to have a lot of impact.
I think so too. Yes, and maybe not have the tears that I remember my mom saying, you've got to get those essays written, and I'm crying at the kitchen table. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.